again. We are live. Day 3, I think, of live streaming. So I'm actually waiting for my son to get out of school. Got to get here early because it's raining today again in SoCal. So um, I figure what better time to do a live stream than to sit here because I got here about an hour early. Actually, an hour and 10 minutes early. I was drinking my coffee before I started the live stream. And so today I just want to talk about photography and how I got into photography, and even give you some tips about how you can get into photography. And I learned these kind of, I want to say I learned the hard way because I didn't plan on being a photographer. So let me just start over really quick. When I started YouTube like 6 7 years ago, it was with a camera. Like it was a Canon 80D, and I think it only shot like 1080 or whatever, but I was using it mainly for video. That's it. That's the only reason I bought it, was to shoot stuff for YouTube. I originally planned to like take photos of my son, who was in my oldest son, Brian, who was in basketball. And I had hopes and dreams of taking pictures of him, and then I just never did. I just didn't. So when it came time to decide to start vlogging stuff, and it wasn't so dominant back then with using iPhones, and now they look freaking great. They look amazing, man. They look just as good as some of the cinema cameras that I've used. But back then it was like, no, I need something that's like a little better, a little more stable. I could hook a kind of a rig up to it and shoot, and that's kind of what I did. I never thought about photography, and I decided that, you know what, I want to get 4K quality, and then I upgraded to a Canon 90D, and that became my main camera that I shot a lot of the videos of vlogs, or the vlogs. I should just say, not video vlogs, they're vlogs, fool. And I used it primarily for my YouTube channel, and that's what I did to shoot all my videos. That's what I used to shoot my green screen. That's what I used for pretty much everything. It was a Canon 90D, which, by the way, I'm a Canon lover. I've used Sony, I've filmed with Sony, and I'm still a Canon guy, so I don't really care. I will be Canon probably for life. I don't know if you guys could hear, but the rain's starting to come down. It was heavy for a little while, and then it finally slowed down today. My journey with photography happened accidentally, and it happened on my very first film, Area 5150, which I do have some behind the scene videos that I uploaded, that I had done like little clips or whatever. I was not on that project for behind the scenes, but I started shooting it. That stuff I was kind of shooting with my iPhone, because it was just like, no one's looking, pull it out, start filming, and they're like, you're not supposed to be filming. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, and then and then I just kept filming. I didn't care. So in every project since, I've done that too. Even when I'm paid and not paid to be the photographer or videographer, I still shoot stuff. So but on that set, that was my very first project, and I mentioned it in my last live stream that I started kind of there. That was my very first film, my very first full feature film. We took that film, we did like principal shooting, which is like the first time you get together. We shot that, I think, in like 7 days. And then there was like 3 or 4 other times we got back together for additional photography, and then we'd shoot more scenes as they were building the script, and it was kind of getting deeper and deeper, where they're like, we got to do more. And they did crowdfunding to like get other known actors in the horror industry and all that. And then even one scene, I'll tell you this story a little bit deeper later on at some point, but one day I was there to help them shoot, and then I ended up in the scene. And first it was as a background actor, then they gave me, hey, can you riff and kind of play around? And I'm like, of course I can. I came from YouTube, bro. I can fucking do that. I didn't care. So then I got included into that film in a scene as well, ironically, as those characters were watching someone get electrocuted and they're watching it live stream, thinking it's a joke, thinking it was a joke. And guess who was creating the electric sparks? I was a freaking PA on the ground, like touching cables, and it was creating sparks and stuff with my goggles on. I don't think that was OSHA approved, but that's kind of what happened. So that day. So anyways, I had my camera with me, and day one, I didn't want to ask anybody, but I had asked the director, like I mentioned in the other episode, other live stream, if I could shoot, and he said, no, we already have a photographer, which they did, and she's actually really good too. And I kind of started asking questions. What is she shooting with? And, you know, I said, hey, I have my Canon camera. She's like, you should just take pictures. And I was like, nah, the director told me no. She's like, you should just do it anyways. And I was like, no, I'm a habitual rule follower. And so I was waiting for my time. And then eventually, like I said before, we had a great day on set. I think this is when they were flipping the car. Like they were flipping a car over for the scene. And it was awesome, man. And everyone was pumped up. We got a cool shot. We were high-fiving. And I was like, hey, Sean, do you mind if I shoot behind the scenes? He's like, yeah, go for it. The next day, I started shooting. And that's kind of where I started. Now, let me kind of share with you that over the years, looking back, I realized this was kind of like the breaking point for me, right? This is where I kind of realized, one, that I can capture some really cool set photos. And I was still not really great at that moment of learning and knowing my camera, like really going into manual mode for shutter speed and aperture and ISO and all these like technical ways that you can really control your camera. I wasn't there yet, so a lot of it was done on auto. And so I just really struggled sometimes when it was sunny outside. It was great when I put in auto. It struggled when it was really dark scenes, because I wasn't using flash and all that. I didn't even know about flash. Yeah, that's how like much of a novice I was. But it was my chance to kind of just get in and get some gritty shots and get in. I was there anyways because they added me to the camera crew. I originally started as a PA and they added me to, I was like right in it, like literally right on set, like 3-4 feet away from where the action was taking. I was standing behind the camera. And so I'm just standing there, not doing anything. So I'm like, I'm gonna start taking pictures. And so I had my camera slung on me, my camera 80D, and just started bam, 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 taking shots. The first couple of times I noticed Sean looked at me like, what am I doing? So what I did, it was actually show him some of the photos I took of him. He was like looking at the screen, all intense, and it was like a close-up side angle shot. What is that? What, I got lint on me? A side angle shot of him, like looking at the camera or looking at the monitor. It was a pretty badass shot. I don't even know if I still have it, but I showed it to him and he was like, hell yeah, that was it. From that point on, I was allowed to shoot whenever I want it, however I want it. And the difference between me and the other shooter, that the original photographer that was there, was she was shooting from a distance where I was like in it, like I was literally super close. The only time I couldn't shoot was while the camera was rolling, because you would hear the clicking of my camera, right? My new Canon R5, I can go into silent mode and all that, but this one has a mechanical shutter, so you would hear that when I'd pull the trigger, so I couldn't do that. So I'd always start to shoot. I said, I gotta figure out how to shoot before the scene and after the scene, and that's kind of what I started doing. So that was the first time some of my photos actually ended up on IMDb, and they're still there till this day. They're still there. If you check the IMDb for that film, which I'll probably put it in the description, they're still there. But what came out of that shoot was one of the producers remembered me as a photographer and asked me would I be willing to do a photo shoot for one of his buddies, which was George Lazenby, who played oh my god, I'm forgetting, James Bond. He did one James Bond movie. I think he was the only person who played Bond in only one movie. And I was like, sure. And so it kind of opened that door. And so where I want to go with this is there's so many different ways to get into the industry, right? If you really want to go from being a novice into a professional photographer, one, you got to know your gear. And it took me like a year to really know my gear and know like different settings with light, using flash, like they require different things. And so the knowledge base of understanding photography became extremely important, and understanding the technical ways of to shoot, creating symmetry and depth and composition. Like I spent 6 months after that shoot, 6 months really studying and was hungry and was watching a bunch of YouTube videos and trying to understand my camera, understand depth of field, and then what's the difference between this lens and this lens that costs 5 times more, and it's because it has a better like f-stop on it. It's probably like a 1.4 or something like that, or 1.8, whatever. Like learning more about camera gear itself, and then learning composition. And so here's what I will share with you on how to get into doing photography is, one, let me reassure you that the quality of the camera does not matter. Everybody that's successful will say, yes, it does. And that's true because of maybe high definition. Like my Canon R5C is 45 megapixels. It's freaking amazing. But you can start with the Rebel T6, which was my first camera. Like in the beginning, it doesn't really matter the gear. It's your composition of how you shoot, and understanding like having stuff in the foreground, the background. If you ever go to my photos and you really look, the first thing that I really learned and made a decision was, how do I make my photos instantly recognizable that they're on set? Not, oh, somebody's hanging out, laughing. Like, how do I make it quickly when you look at it, you're like, oh, this is a film set? And that was using the gear, right? It was like using, if you, a lot of my photos, you'll see camera gear in it. You'll see this from a snapshot. You're like, oh, they're on set instantly. That was a choice. That was a choice. And so recognizing that, I got better at shooting that with a camera that wasn't it had the stock lens on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't the 18-55 or whatever it was. It wasn't anything like amazing, but the shots were freaking great. And that's what helped me build my confidence, is understanding how to shoot, how to create composition, and then work on doing it consistently. And one of the things that I learned in that first year of shooting things on set is I was looking for the same shots over and over and over. Like, I want them looking at the monitors. I want them thinking. I want them like pointing at stuff or whatever. Like, there are very specific shots that I wanted. I want the camera in the left corner and then you could see the actors or whatever, like to fill the frame. Like, there were very specific photos that I made a choice that these are the ones that are gonna become my normal shots. And the way I found those were by accident, because I was shooting everything like just bing. But in post, I was like, for every 100 photos I shot, maybe 5 were good. And those 5 had composition. And then I would study them in post. I'm like, why is this so much better than this other photo? And then I started realizing it's the composition, and it's like using things as foreground and background, and really understanding. So that stuff is more important than actually the type of camera you have. You can do it with an iPhone. I've seen some amazing pictures with iPhones, but using those concepts and using those rules, those technical rules of photography, are what'll set you apart from someone who has an amazing camera that just doesn't have a good eye, right? And I think that's, a lot of people tell me, including Sean, because he pulled me into a bunch of projects after to shoot, or called me back to do photography at events, is he would tell me, he's like, you have such a great eye. And I think that's partially true, but I also think my understanding of composition increased dramatically and consistently to get specific shots. Like, I need these shots because these are the ones that everyone's gonna go like, oh, hell yeah. And those were the ones that I knew I needed to get, and had practiced getting them, and had done it over and over on different sets. And that's what helped me establish that eye, I guess, right? So then let me just share, because this is already getting into the 15-minute mark as I'm blabbing. Let me share how you can actually get started. And my recommendation is help some friends out. Friends, family, portfolio is so important. And let me explain that. Your resume is your photos. You can tell people you're a photographer. They're like, cool, let me see your photos. And you're like, well, I haven't had a chance to do. You got to find those opportunities. You have to make them. And so if you go on vacation, take your camera with you. You have birthday parties, take your camera with you. My kids hate it. And even till today, they still hate when they see my camera. They're like, here he goes. And then they see the photos and they're like, man, those were awesome. Or my nieces and nephews are like, uncle, like those pictures were amazing. But when it's happening, everybody hates it. Those photos became part of like my portfolio of doing family events. And then I used those photos to actually get real gigs shooting events. And then at those events, those photos helped me open the door to get more and more professional event type photos. You know what I mean? So if you want to shoot, let's say product placements or something like that, you want to shoot products, start practicing at home. Like do your own little setup, take shots, take the time to like try to figure out how to make the light work a little better, make the product stand out, like try to use a background, like create those photos yourself so that you can showcase them to someone. If you're into sports, go to a game, like find out who's playing locally, whether it's high school sports, football, basketball, show up with your camera. I will tell you this, it's better to ask for permission, not permission, for forgiveness than to ask for permission. Because sometimes you'll show up for things and you say, hey, is it okay if I shoot? And they automatically say no. Versus I start shooting and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just a photographer. They're like, oh, cool. And they walk away. You know, and I'm just like, oh, I'm just capturing some photos for the players or whatever. If it's a football game, obviously you need to get some type of clearance to get down, even if a high school one get down. But normally if they see you with the camera, they're like, oh, he's a photographer, come on in. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know how many times I got led into places that I probably wouldn't have if I didn't have a camera. They're like, oh yeah, come on in. You want to get on the rooftop? Yeah, come on in. Downtown LA? Sure, come on in. You're like, what? I'm like, oh, cool. The whole time I'm like, what the hell? They just give me VIP entrance, you know? So if you really want to get started, you have to just find the courage to start shooting. And don't worry about, is it good, is it not? Because if you do that, you'll never get started. And I will tell you, even shooting now, I still get bad photos, but maybe it's not, if I shoot 100, maybe I'll get 35 or 40 of them now that I'm just like, hell yeah, versus 5. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I also learned that when I shoot something, I'll shoot a wide and then I'll shoot a tight shot. So I get 2 different angles from that one same shot. Even if it's people on set doing things, I'll get one as a group and then get in closer and get a close-up on them, you know, so you can see their eyes and see them thinking. I found a way to be a little more efficient, you know. But you got to get started. Find your way to get started. Don't worry about what anybody thinks. Just do it. And everyone has birthday parties. Everybody has something going on that they want a photographer. So why don't you become that photographer and invest? My last kind of thoughts for you is, don't go for the name brand, high, you know, whatever camera. Find something within reason. I've bought lenses off eBay. You can get cameras, you know, half price or whatever than they normally were on eBay because they're used. Like, start there. And then as you gradually become better, my theory or my thought process was, I'm only gonna upgrade as this camera begins to generate revenue for me. And that's what would happen. It was generating revenue, and that revenue went into, okay, let's buy another lens. Okay, I'm gonna use this for video too, so let's buy another tripod. But I made the camera make me money that I put into my gear. And so that's why sometimes I hear people say, well, you have all this gear and whatever. I didn't always have this gear, but I hustled and used those cameras to make money. And that money literally went back into investing, into upgrading. And that's kind of what I did. And that's how I got into photography. And I just kind of continue to grow on set, where I sometimes have 3 cameras with me. You're like, 3? I'm like, yeah, because some are shooting video, widescreen, and just letting it roll, while I have my camera that I could shoot photography and then jump to video if I need to. And then I have my other one as a backup where I could just drop. Usually I have my camera on a shoulder strap or whatever, I could just drop it and pick up the other one and just start shooting with it with a different lens on that one. So you can do it. So if you have any questions about how to get started, or if you want more, you know, information about, I guess, getting in the details, getting into the weeds of why I chose certain cameras, I guess I could do that too. But don't be afraid. Like, you can do it. I started the same. I started like, that's why I said I clumsily, I don't even know if that's a real word, fell into photography. And then I embraced it. And then I really fell in love with it. Like, it's so powerful, like, to capture those moments. There was one day where I realized the only record of what's happening right now is coming through my lens. Because yeah, they have the actual film that'll get released, but everything that's been happening behind the scenes, I'm the only one that actually has record of it. I'm the only one that shot photos and shot video of the creation of this film. And so it's pretty powerful. It's pretty powerful when you think about it like that. Like, wow, like I'm documenting this film's journey. So if you think about it like that, it's a little easier to jump in. And like I said, you can do it. You can do it. So don't be afraid. Just do it. Like Nike said, just do it. All right. That's pretty much it for today. Hope you guys enjoy this video. And don't forget to subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications so you get the next live stream. 30 days of live streaming. Yeah, it's gonna happen. It's happening. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye.